ቀናን ጌታቸው number 3
all tax proposals that favor the rich are fair proposals.
No, incorrect. Change the quantity.
Some tax proposals that favor the rich are fair proposals. Are not fair.
And not rich fair proposal. Yes, correct. Fair proposal. Very good. Yes, that's it. You need to pay particular attention to make sure that the subject, predicate, copulas, and quantifiers are correctly translated. Yes. How to represent them Venn diagrammatically. The main objective of our investigation in this particular section is to understand the role in constructing argument. However, universal proposition A and E can be interpreted in two distinct ways, right? In representing the four standard form categorical proposition, we need to pay particular attention more specifically to A and E propositions because they have been translated into different approaches. The first approach is Aristotelian approach, and second approach is the Boolean or modern approach. And we need to take into consideration whether the two approach is carefully considered, right? And in order to identify the Boolean and Aristotelian approach, we need to introduce the concept of existential import. Existential import, right? Let's consider the following pair of propositions. For example, all Tom Cruise movies are hits. All unicorns are one horned animal. In every conversation, the first proposition implies that Tom Cruise has indeed made some movies. In other words, the statement carries existential import. The first proposition carries what? Existential import because it talks about something which is really existent, which is concrete or tangible phenomena. On the other hand, the second one, which is all unicorns are one-horned animals, does not make such an implication. Although the statement can be considered true because unicorns by definition have a single horn. It does not imply actual existence of unicorn. It's an imaginary entity. It is not about something which really exists, right? So the question arises as to how universal proposition should be interpreted in terms of implying the actual existence of entities being discussed. Two different approaches have been taken by logicians to respond to this question. The first is Aristotelian approach. All pheasants are birds implies the existence of pheasant according to what? Aristotle. All pheasants are birds imply the existence of pheasant according to Aristotle. But it does not imply the existence of pheasant from the Boolean standpoint. We'll come to that point later on. No pine trees are maples imply the existence of pine trees according to Aristotle. According to George Bull, it does not imply the existence of pine trees. All satyrs are vile creatures does not imply the existence of satyrs because they are mythical beings. The same thing is true for Boolean approach, right? Both Aristotle and George Bull agreed on the absence of implication of universal statement that talks about the non-existent or imaginary entities such as satyrs or unicorns, right? But they differ on universal positive and universal negative statement which talks about actually existing or concrete living entities, right? You need to pay particular attention to this point of difference between Boolean standpoint and Aristotelian standpoint, right? All trucks are vehicles, no roads are dices, or werewolves are monsters, are all what? Absent does not imply the existence of concrete living entities, right? The universal statement does not imply the existence of concrete or tangible entities from the Boolean standpoint. From the Boolean standpoint, the Aristotelian standpoint is receptive or open to existence. It acknowledges the existence of things and universal statement about those things that carry existential import. Existence holds significance within this perspective. On the other hand, the Boolean standpoint is what? Closed or unreceptive, right? Somehow easier to evaluate, to begin our evaluation from the Boolean standpoint, right? It does not recognize the existence of things even when they do exist. Therefore, universal statement about those things do not carry existential import. It's important to note that neither Aristotelian nor the Boolean standpoint recognize the existence of things that do not exist. In such case, the Aristotelian standpoint aligns with the Boolean standpoint. So the only point of difference is with regards to what? A and E proposition. Both Aristotle and George Bull agreed on what? I and O proposition, right? You don't have to worry about the I and O proposition. So all you have to do is to investigate the A and E proposition and whether they talk about something really concrete, living entity, or an imaginary item, right? An imaginary entity. Right, so our Venn diagram representation itself is influenced by these two approaches or two interpretations, right? How can we represent the four standard forms of categorical proposition using Venn diagram? A Venn diagram is what? An overlapping circle in which we will be asked to put the mark X or circled X or shading the part of the diagram in its appropriate region, right? From the Boolean standpoint, so the easiest method is to begin from the Boolean standpoint, and we'll come to the Aristotelian standpoint later on. The four kinds of categorical proposition have the following meaning. Notice that the first two universal proposition implies nothing about the existence of the thing denoted by S. Right? Or SRP means what? No member of S are outside P. Right? It's represented by shading the area of S, which is not included under P. No SRP means no member of S are inside P, and it can be represented by shading the intersection of the common region of S and P. Some SRP, at least one S exists, that is a P is represented by putting S inside the subject class, which is not included in the predicate class. Some S are not P, at least one S exists that is not a P. It can be represented by X inside the common region. Adopting this interpretation of categorical proposition, the 19th century logician John Venn developed a system of diagram to represent the information they express. These diagrams have come to be known as the Venn diagram, right? How can we represent the four standard form of categorical proposition? So the first thing that you need to do is to draw two overlapping circles. The first circle stands for the S or the subject class, and the second circle is the predicate class. And all you have to do is to either to shade or to put an asterisk or an X inside the proper region, right? Two types of representation or marks are allowed. Two types of marks are used: shading an area and placing an X in an area. Shading an area indicates that the shaded region is devoid of any element. Shading means the shaded region is devoid, it's an empty, while placing an X is an area signifies the existence of at least one element within that region. The X can be understood as representing that particular element. If no mark is present in an area, it indicates that no information is known about the region. It may contain a member or it may be empty. It may be empty. Shading is exclusively used to represent the content of universal proposition, and whereas placing an X is exclusively used to represent the content of particular proposition, namely I and O proposition. The content of four types of categorical proposition is represented as follows from the Boolean standpoint. From the Boolean standpoint, or SRP, by shading the region of S, which is not included under P, and no SRP by shading what? Which region? The intersection, the common region. And some SRP by placing X inside the common region. And some SRP by placing X inside the subject class, which is not included in the P class. Not included in the P class, right? So you need to remember this: shading means empty, X means existence. X means at least one element of S or one element of P is included in the class, in that particular class. Boolean square of opposition. Before proceeding to the Aristotelian square of opposition, we need to begin from the Boolean square of opposition. A and E propositions is logically undetermined. The relation between A and I proposition is logically undetermined. The relation between I and O proposition is logically undetermined, and the relation between E and O proposition is logically undetermined. The only thing that we can be certain from the Boolean standpoint is only contradictory relation, right? If A proposition is given as true, then we can certain about the truth value of O proposition. If E proposition is given as false, then we can be certain about the truth value of the I proposition. Contradictory relation can be determined, but we cannot determine the relation between A and E proposition or the vertical relation or horizontal relation from the Boolean standpoint. From the Aristotelian standpoint, of course, there can be a condition under which we can evaluate the horizontal as well as the vertical relation, right? So Boolean standpoint asserts only the diagonal relation or contradictory relation, does not make a claim horizontal relation and vertical relation from the Boolean standpoint. We need to be aware of the difference between the Boolean standpoint and Aristotelian standpoint. If two propositions are related contradictory relation, they necessarily have what? Opposite truth value. Thus, if a certain A proposition is given as true, the corresponding O proposition must be false. Similarly, if a certain proposition I is given as false, the corresponding E proposition is true. But we are not allowed to identify the truth value of the other proposition. Horizontal and vertical relation is not determined. They are logically undetermined from the Boolean standpoint, right? From the Boolean standpoint. To illustrate this particular explanation using example, we can take examples. Some trade spies are not masters at bribery. What type of proposition? Which type is it? Some trade spies are not masters at bribery. It's an I type, right? An I type or O type? O type, right? Are not. Copula, look at the copula, right? It's an O type. Look at the conclusion. Which type is it? All trade spies are masters at bribery. Which type is it? It's an A type, right? What is the relation? Is it contradictory relation or subalternation? Horizontal or vertical or diagonal? It's diagonal, right? Relation between A type and O type. O type. Assume that some trade spies are not masters at bribery is given as true, then what will be the truth value of the conclusion? False, right? That's what the example states. So the argument can be taken as what? Valid argument from the Boolean standpoint. Actually, as far as the contradictory relation is concerned, there is no point of difference between Aristotle and Boole. The point of difference arises with regard to horizontal and vertical relation, right? Argument of this sort are called immediate inference because they have only one premise, and instead of reasoning from one premise to the next, and then it's a conclusion, we proceed immediately from a single premise to the conclusion. To test this argument for validity, we begin by assuming that the premise, which is an O proposition, is true, and we enter this truth value in the square of a position. Whereas, look at this list of examples. All A are B. Therefore, some A are B. What's the relation between A and E or I and O? Which relation is it? A and then I. Relation, vertical or horizontal or diagonal? Vertical, right? So can we evaluate the validity of this argument from the Boolean standpoint? No, right? The only relation that we can evaluate is what? Diagonal relation, right? The relation between A and I statement cannot be determined. They are logically undetermined from the Boolean standpoint. It's false that some A are not B, therefore it's false that no A are B. What is the relation? Some A are not B is what? What type of statement? O type. And no A are B? E type, right? E and O? Vertical. So can we tell? No, right? Such kind of fallacy is known as existential fallacy from the Boolean standpoint, right? Either vertical or horizontal relation is known as existential fallacy, or an argument which proceeds from the universal statement to particular statement, except an argument that proceeds from diagonally, right? An argument that proceeds diagonally, even though it proceeds from universal to particular, it may not be considered as fallacious, right? But an argument that proceeds from universal to particular, which is non-diagonal in its type, is known as existential fallacy from the Boolean standpoint, right? The same thing is true for the third example. No A are B. Therefore, it's false that all A are B. It's an existential fallacy. It's a statement that proceeds from universal to particular. proceed from universal to particular. The same thing is true for the fourth one. It's false that some A are B, therefore some A are not B. You may doubt how it's false that OA are B is a particular statement. Who can tell me why it's a particular statement? No A are B, therefore it's false that all A are B. The conclusion is what? Particular statement, right? If you came across such kind of statement, all you have to do is to change both the quality and the quantity. It's false that all A are B means some A are not B, right? The conclusion is what? Some A are not B, right? If you find the expression such as it's false that, all you have to do is just change both the quality and the quantity, right? No A are B, therefore some A are not B. Some A are not both. You need to change both quality and quantity. Both quality and quantity. So the resulting statement is what? Some A are not B. No A are B, therefore some A are not B. You can do the same for the last example. It's false that some A are B. Yes, it's an A type, so it's an O type. Both quality and quantity مقير علبت. What is the quality? Quality is universal, and quantity universal, quality positive. So you need to change it into what? Particular negative. Particular negative. The same thing can be done for the second one, right? So you need to be aware of certain exceptions, right? While of this, the vertical relation and horizontal relation statement from universal to particular are always considered to be existential fallacy, except the diagonal relation. It's important to see that not every inference having universal premise and particular conclusion commit existential fallacy. For example, the inference all A are B, therefore some A are not B does not commit existential fallacy. Why? Because it is diagonal, right? This inference is invalid because the conclusion contradicts the premise. Thus, to detect the existential fallacy, one must ensure that the invalidity results merely from the fact that the premise lacks existential import. Whether it talks about something which lacks concrete or living member of the reality represented by the subject or the predicate class, right? Now, in order to illustrate this particular explanation, let's look at this example. Draw Venn diagram for the following proposition. Either all you have to do is just draw two overlapping circles and represent each region by number for the sake of clarity, and then I use shading or putting an asterisk X inside the proper region. Caleb Mulatu. Yes. Which region? Some political campaigns are mere attempts to discredit opponent, putting an asterisk or shading inside 1, inside 2, or inside 3. Some political campaigns are mere attempt to discredit opponent. Okay, I will come to you later on. Kebron Wonderson. Kebron. Which region is to be represented by putting an asterisk or shading? One is asterisk or shading? Shading, the region represented by 1. Yes, some political campaigns are mere attempts to discredit opponent, Venn diagrammatically represented by shading or putting an asterisk. Overlapping, shading inside the overlapping region. In which region we're going to put either shading or an asterisk? Okay, I'll come to later. I'll come to you later on. Kebron Wenderson. It's about Getachew. It's about, if I'm not wrong in pronouncing your name. It's about absent. ቃል ኪዳን ማንደፍሮ yes which region either shedding or putting an asterisk some political campaigns are mere attempts to discredit opponent number 2 putting an asterisk or shedding asterisk inside number 2 yes correct some political campaigns are mere attempts to discredit opponent it is an I type for an I type we need to place an X inside the common region yes that ቃል ኪዳን ማንደፍሮ ካሌብ ድርሻዬ number 2 all novels are works of fiction number 1 shedding or asterisk shedding correct ካሌብ ድርሻዬ correct ካሌብ ኢቲኤስ 0765 0765 yes number 3 no tax audits are pleasant experience for cheaters number 3 shedding or asterisk shedding incorrect one more chance no tax audits are pleasant experience for cheater all right okay I'll come to you later on ken ኢቲኤስ 0744 ken 0744 ኢቲኤስ 0744 absent ኬና ግርማ no tax audits are pleasant experience for cheater number 3 shedding which region 2 correct kedol kele yes kedol kele absent or fake name kedol kele የሚባል ሰው ልጅ አለ it's fake name right ከናን ሽመክት absent ኬና መርጋ yes no tax audits some birds are not creatures that can fly not creature that can fly which region number 2 shedding or asterisk yes incorrect some birds are not creature that can fly is represented by what by putting an asterisk inside one yes inside one kena correct incorrect ክብሮም ሞገስ number 5 all bicycles are vehicles that rely on pedal power shedding which one number 1 yes Khalid Mohammed use modern square of opposition to determine whether the following immediate inference are valid or invalid from the Boolean standpoint. It's false that some computers are devised that process information electronically. Therefore, no computers are devised that process information electronically. Now tell me which relation is it? Is it an A-E relation or an A-I relation or an A-O relation or what else? Which relation is it? It's false that some computers are devised that process information. Which type is it proposition? What type? Is it A type, E type, I type, O type? It is an I type, correct. Conclusion. No computers are devised that process information. Which type is it? It's what? An E type. Yes. Relation? Vertical, horizontal, diagonal. I and E. I and E. Yes. Khalid Mohammed, partially correct. Khalid Abdul Basit. Khalid Abdul Basit, can you answer it correctly? Which relation? Which type of relation is it? Diagonal, right? It's diagonal. The I type is given as what? False. The conclusion is given as true. Is it valid or invalid from the Boolean standpoint? Valid, right? It's a valid relations. I mean, we can tell the truth value of the two propositions. But the relation is contradictory relation. We can tell whether it's valid or invalid. So the relation is can be determined, but it has contradictory truth value. The premise is false, then the conclusion is true. Khalid Abdul Basit. Khalid Mustafa. Number 2. No fertility drugs are solution to every problem. Which type is it? E type. It's false that all fertility drugs are solution to every problem. Which type is it? A type. Relation? Horizontal. Invalid? No. It's what? Logically? Undetermined. Undetermined. Right? Logically undetermined from the Boolean standpoint. From the Boolean standpoint, partially correct. Kalkidan Wenderson. Number 3, Kalkidan Wenderson. It's false that no credit cards are things that contain hologram. Therefore, some credit cards are things that contain hologram. Which relation is it? AE, IO, or it's what? E and I. Correct. Relation? Vertical, horizontal, diagonal. Diagonal. Is it logically identifiable? Yes. The premise is given as false, the conclusion is true, then it is logically identifiable. It's contradictory relation from the Boolean standpoint. Kalkidan Wenderson. Khalid Zainu, I will come to point later on. Yes. We can use a square of opposition from the Boolean standpoint or from the Aristotelian standpoint to identify the validity of immediate inference. We can